Welcome to Economics Happy Hour. My name's Matt,
And my name is Jadrian.
and happy 2025. We made it.
We made it. Well, this audio will make it.
This audio has made it. We are halfway through the month when we're recording, but we have made it to 2025 when we're listening, and excited. It is finals week, though, at Virginia Tech as we're recording. We just finished up finals week at Susquehanna here. What's a key observation you have from
Mm.
finals weeks, finals week in general?
So we are right in the middle of finals week. I gave one a couple days ago, and I'm giving one tomorrow. I would say what has stood out the past week or two, it feels much more like pre-pandemic. I think all the teachers out there, I think we've complained every year since 2020 about how frustrating it was to teach in the middle of the pandemic. And we always kept wondering, when would it go back to life before the pandemic? This was probably the closest I felt to pre-pandemic times in terms of, students stopping by just to say thank you or just saying
Nice.
goodbye. That hasn't really happened over the past couple
Yeah.
semesters. This batch did. This batch stopped by, said goodbye, wished me good luck, things like that. Similar. I would say similar questions, wanting to do well. That sort of. It was
Yeah.
very reminiscent of pre-pandemic.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That actually is consistent with what we saw on campus just for the whole semester with our
Mhm.
students, that this was the most engaged since COVID. And we've had a lot of engaged in all of the classes, but a
Yeah.
little bit more uniformity. And I mean, this incoming class was 1 year further away from
Hmm.
when it started and had a little bit more high school between that. I saw a really nice post of a student of yours made giving a shout out to you in your class. And in there, of course, was escaping, although I'm not really going to do economics anymore, this was still nice. So I was like, you reposted it, so clearly you were like, yeah, it's worth a repost. But I saw that and I
Yeah.
was like, it's kind of like a half shout out, like, oh, he
No,
was so great. I've decided I'm not going to do anything he's doing anymore.
no. He's one of my best students. He told me very early on that he was switching. Virginia Tech has a fintech degree,
Oh, very cool.
fintech and data analytics. I told my students from the very beginning. So we have this is a student in the majors only course that Matt's talking about. So they come into Virginia Tech, at least telling Virginia Tech they want to major in economics. They don't always want to major in economics. Sometimes students change their mind, and I try to be very supportive of that because I changed. I think we definitely have talked about it in a previous episode. I changed my mind. You changed your mind.
Yep.
And so I try to be as supportive as possible in the sense that like, hey, if you, I would love for you to become an econ major if you take my class. For my majors, I would love for them to stay an econ major. But at the same time, I've tried to present it as I'm glad that you were able to find out that this was not your passion and that you were able to switch because the worst thing would be trying to figure when you realize that years from
Yep.
now. So if I can help you realize it now, that's super helpful too.
Yeah, yeah, and in the same way with, I mean, officially now I'm dean of a business school, and I say, look, it's not for everybody. And sometimes if you take a class, and honestly, if you take a class and you hate it, and you realize I don't want to do anything in that with my life anymore, it's probably a pretty valuable class, right?
It's
If it can
yeah,
rule out some segment. So, and often hate is a strong word, but if you realize I don't think this is for me,
yeah.
there's value there. So no, I would that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. So
I don't know if I've ever told you this. I think we maybe have talked about this before. I don't encourage my first year students, my non-majors. I don't encourage my general principles course. I do not encourage them to major in economics. Have I ever told you why?
I don't think you have.
Like from the very beginning of the semester, I tell them like I'm not going to convince you to major in economics. We go through different examples when we talk about opportunity costs, and I go, what's the opportunity cost of becoming an econ major? And I always tell them, I go, just as a reminder, I don't think you should do that. So like I sort of remind them throughout the semester, not basically, I won't tell them to major in economics. Um, it's kind of goofy. Part of the reason for that is I feel like I have found we get more majors because of that. It
Okay.
sits with them and they go, why is he not? Every other class is telling me to major in their subject, right? Their psychology and their English. They're trying to convince them otherwise.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons I tell them that is exactly what you were just saying. I don't want them to major in economics because they like me. All right. I'm the first class they take. So they've got to be able to
Yeah.
differentiate, do I like economics or do I like Dr. Wooten's class?
Sure.
And if
Sure.
they, you don't know until you take the second economics course. And if you find out that you don't like economics and you've switched your
Yeah.
major, that's really stressful. So I encourage all of them to start with a minor in economics. So they'll get their email in a couple days. I'll say, hey, you're only 5 classes away from a minor. Obviously, you can switch to a major later if you want, but consider picking up this minor. And then what we have found is a lot of students are receptive to that. They take the second course, they realize they like that course too.
Yep.
And then they usually switch their major. We get a lot of them switching their major in their second year instead.
Yeah. I do give the pitch to switch after exam one, or I think it's actually after exam two. It's been a while since I've taught principals, but
Yeah.
I would give the pitch. What you say is right. I still, I give the pitch. I figure they're in 2 to 3 months, and
Yeah.
they would like it. So, important question for the evening. What is your beer of choice?
So even though we're talking about our goals today, one of my goals is to dig into this freezer or into my refrigerator. So I have pulled way deep into the fridge and I have found a Shiner Oktoberfest Marzen style. This could be 2 years old. I don't know. It's been in the back. Actually, I'm very comfortable saying I did not purchase this in the most
In-
recent Oktoberfest.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm
I'm
getting
on,
there.
I'm on the flip side. I have a
Mm.
Secret Agent Man from Evergreen Brewing. This is a recent
I like
purchase.
Evergreen is good. That's a good
Yes.
brewery. You
Um,
go to Harrisburg or you just got it at the local beer store?
our local beer store. Shout out to Keller's Beer, owned by a wonderful alum of Susquehanna. Uh, Keller's Beer Store has a lot of really great craft beer, along with all of the beers you would expect at. For those who
Well,
aren't from Pennsylvania, the liquor laws here are very weird. You can buy 6 packs at any place, not at any place, but at certain places that have a food counter. So a lot of grocery stores now have a deli area, and then they can sell a 6 pack of beer and up to two
you need more than a deli area. You need seating, which is really
seating
important.
at
Yeah,
the deli
you
area.
can't just
That is
slice
true.
meat. You've got to have some chairs.
Yes. And even some gas stations like Sheets
Sheets?
will have a beer cooler because they have a couple tables and they have a little heated deli area. But for anything bigger purchases, or often for craft beer that won't be at the grocery store, you would need to go to a beer distributor store. And this it's just weird laws. And then if you want your wine or liquor products, that's a completely different store, although wine is now in the stores. But the wine and liquor store can't sell beer, so
I
it's
don't miss it, Matt. I
you
don't
don't
miss it
miss
at
that
all.
part. No, no, that part. But well, before we get to the topic, cheers.
Cheers, sir.
Hmm.
So I was looking back at our
Oh, that's a
goals
good
from
one.
last year, and this is going to start very differently. So maybe I'll ask you about a personal goal you're partly doing, but
Okay.
also I guess we can almost recap one of our goals from the middle of the semester with the start. And I really hope we don't ruin this by the time this releases. One of your goals last
Yep.
year was that you were doing dry January, partly
Yep.
so that you could lose some weight. So I'm going to mix these two questions
Yep.
together. One, are you doing dry January again this year? Or I guess this upcoming year.
I think I'm doing a modified version. Our family
Okay.
doing a cruise. My wife and daughter, when each kid's 21,
Mhm.
we take them on a trip. Our oldest we took to Disney, and now we're doing cruises where the middle one wants to go. Yeah, that's not going to be a dry week. But for the rest, I think I am going
Okay.
to try to do so basically it'll be a dry 4 days and then a normal week and then a dry second half of
I
January.
think that's yeah, you did this similarly last year,
Yeah.
right? I think, yeah, you did
And
you
the Disney year when we were
right.
speaking, it was the same thing. I've tried it both of the past couple of years. Actually,
Okay.
last year I failed at dry January, and this is a bad excuse for failing. A really bad excuse, but life happens, and be honest. And we had a faculty member pass away,
Right.
and it kind of added. I mean, it's just the stuff on that. There's like the personal loss, but then as dean, I was dealing with a lot of the stuff like, oh my goodness, who do we email
Yeah.
and when and how and stuff. And like 5 or 6 o'clock came around, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have a beer today. And so that's that that so I didn't get through as much of dry January last time, but I did kind of pace myself and I was really doing like a drink a day. So I was doing damp um January, February, March
Okay.
and stuff. So that's good. So I'm going to try that, I think. Part of it was weight loss then too. That was
Oh,
the
there we
other
go.
part.
So part
I
of it was weight
was
loss.
probably
How
about
have you been doing?
I was I lost some weight, and then I'm down. I'm definitely down from the start of 2024, which is good.
Okay.
And I hit the weight goal, and then I've gained back a few pounds. So I would like to, it's the
Thanksgiving
never-ending
Thanksgiving
struggle.
happened.
It's the never-ending struggle. Um, but I did hit, we talked early in, I think it was August,
Hmm.
about about a goal, and I ended up hitting that. And then shortly after, I wasn't, I don't know. I could blame it on a bunch of things, right? We always can. There's always excuses for things, but I am hoping that, yeah, being healthier is a good thing. I mean, health is probably, in terms of certain age, and I'm fortunate enough, I'm in a good job. Health is a bigger currency than actual currency, I think,
Yeah.
right now, thinking about the next, stages of life. So,
So do you think you'll be making a donation in the next couple weeks to Virginia Tech or to Susquehanna?
I thought we went through November, so I think it's
Oh, it
to
was? I thought we went all the way to
Susquehanna.
the end of the year.
Yeah.
Oh,
Otherwise, I'm gonna have to hustle here.
that's
You're gonna have to
see,
track back.
I will go back and try to quickly look. I'm pretty sure that we said we would donate to basically like the other schools' um,
Yes.
retirement. Now,
Not
oh,
retired,
I don't
like
know that I can find
department.
this.
Yep. Yeah, which when was it? I thought it was November, early November when we had the actual target time because I had a doctor's appointment in early November, and that's the reason that was in my
Yeah,
mind.
see, I thought we were going all the way till the end of the year. My mindset was I need to lose this weight by the end of the year.
Oh, mine was by November.
Okay, well then I will happily say I did lose my weight by the end of the year, and I feel very comfortable. Even though we're 2 weeks away from the end of the year, I feel very comfortable saying I will still be under my weight goal.
Congratulations.
Because thank you. My goal was to lose, or was to, I think to get down to 210, and I
Okay.
think I was a little over two. I think I was a little over 220. I think I was at like 224, 225. When I weighed myself the other day, I think I was down to like 208, 209.
That's
So
impressive.
I'm slow. I'm still going. We'll see what Christmas does to me, but I feel very confident I can do it.
Yeah, yeah. No, the yeah, I was at about 207 and I had said to get down to 201. I remember I wasn't quite as much because I'd already lost I was at a peak of 215 earlier in the year.
I
Uh,
found it. I found the post.
we found the episode, so
Thank you for the show notes. All right, here we go. Before we dive into this new semester, we're setting personal goals alongside our academic ones. We're committing to it. The way we said it is we're both committing to lose 10 pounds by the end of the year. That's the
that's
way
what
we
the
wrote
show notes say. That is not what we said in the in the actual. Now I'm gonna have to go listen.
it. Okay, well, I've
We'll go
definitely
listen.
lost 10 pounds.
Yeah,
So I feel comfortable, even if I gain a couple pounds, that I'm still going to be 10 pounds down
yeah,
by the time that this drops on January 2nd.
yeah.
So Virginia Tech students will get $100 from me.
We'll be wealthier. That's good. That's good.
So, Matt, do you have other personal goals for 2025?
So, personal goals I'm not as sure about. I should have personal
I would
goals.
say, I mean, you got a sabbatical coming, so
I
professional
have a
goals.
sabbatical, so that's
We've
the biggest. I
got.
don't know that we announced it officially on this before, but
We did. I think we talked about it last time. We talked about it
we
last time.
okay, awesome.
We did.
It's I can't remember yesterday. The so sabbatical is coming up, and I'm just so stunningly excited. I actually think I'll be just as busy or busier, but I'll wake up and to dive into research. Is going to be great. And I'll share here the same thing that I've shared with everybody. It's also a step back to reflect. I am going back into the dean role on July 1st. That is, pretty much like no matter what, unless the president and the provost say no, you don't get to
Mhm.
do that. I'm going on sabbatical and I'm coming back. As a dean, you serve at the pleasure of the president and the provost. But and so I'll be back after that in the dean role for a while. But part of this also is a little bit of an evaluation of thinking through. I am 48. That is my age. I might have a 20-year career left. What should that career look like? And I am curious. I think it's a very real possibility because I love being a dean, that I miss being in the action. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh my goodness, I'm twitchy. I think there is a possibility that I'm like, oh my goodness, faculty life, this seems incredible. And I missed that too, because I loved the
Yeah.
teaching and research. And I am hoping I get an internal signal in a little while. So for everybody out there who's connected with Susquehanna, I'm definitely back on July 1st, at least if I have anything to say about it. But I am but thinking about it, it's the kind of thing we encourage everybody to do. What is the future? What's 5 to 10 years look like? And so I guess in terms of a personal slash professional goal, I would love to have more clarity on what I might be doing at age 55.
That is an incredibly deep goal. Like
It's a good
I'm not gonna be
goal.
able to top this. I am very happy for you. I think on the professional side, the offer still stands. I know you have asked about this before. You can't have my class for the whole semester, but if you would like to come give a guest lecture,
That would be so
um,
cool.
I would love to have you down, even if it's just sort of a what does an economist study? Why should you major in economics? I'm happy to give you space and time in my big class. So it'll have 600 students if you want to stop by and but it'll if you're down in the area.
No, this is tempting for a reason that I hadn't thought of until now. I may have travel plans that bring me not
Close.
that far from you, and instead of flying, maybe it's a drive and it's a stopping on the way or something. So
Just let me know.
I will
I
let you
mean, as
know.
long as there's not like an exam the next day,
Of
I'm
course.
happy to turn over my class to you fully to talk about whatever you want.
Oh, that's dangerous. That's dangerous. But
You
I
know,
will. I'll let you know. We'll follow up on that, on the details, and that would make a very interesting podcast episode where I reflect on that too. So
and hey, maybe we can record a part of you giving the talk, and then we can bounce. We
yeah.
can weave that in and all sorts of stuff.
So
Uh,
so a not measurable. I would like to be back to closer to the 200 range for me. Like if you're talking, I remember last year you were like goals, they should be measurable, and you're right, because it's tough to go to an unmeasured, a broad
yeah.
goal. I want to be healthy.
Yes.
But so that's I think that would be the health goal. Let's get a little
Okay.
bit closer to that range. Not doing anything stupid, right? This isn't like, oh, I'll do a cleanse and get
Right.
there. This is all about trying to eat just a little bit better, a little bit more exercise. And then the professional side, figure out, what at age 55, what should I be doing? So let's turn this over. I mean, congrats, first of all. 16 pounds in a
Yeah.
semester is awesome, and it's impressive, and it's healthy, and that's wonderful news. So congrats on that.
Thank
What's
you.
personal and or professional goals for 2025?
So there was a moment where I got a little stuck around the 210 mark, and it was taking me a while to break underneath that. I would like to get down closer to 200. I think that is a sort of a nice, solid goal. I was working out pretty regularly at the start of the semester, and then, excuses popped up, and I said, "Oh, I'm busy. I can't do it." I would really like to get back into the gym at least two. I was going 3 times, and then it turned into 2 times, and then it turned into no times.
Yeah, yeah.
I would like to start going back to the gym 2 times a week. Really carving out time to do that every single week. You know, I get maybe I'm gonna blame Abdullah for this. I get very sappy around this time because I also go through this sort of reflective, what do I want to do? What do I want to achieve in the next 5 years, 10 years? What are my goals? I might regret telling you this, so maybe this is I'll put it in my professional part, but I've on the personal side, I need to lose a little bit more weight. I think I've been doing a good job eating healthier. That's gonna stay. You know, I still want to see stadiums. I've got a lot of stadiums I want to see. I've done a really good job getting to go to stadiums this year. I would like to do a little bit more this summer than I did last year. I didn't get to do as many last year because of hosting Jet Set. So I would really like to try to knock out some small trips on weekends to knock out different things. So I'll stick with um, my normal amount of getting a little healthier, going on a few more
Yep.
stadiums. On the
Very
professional
cool.
side, I have been thinking about this for months. It really
Okay.
is. I always like to blame Abdullah for stuff, but Wayne, I think Wayne teased this at me a little bit too, where he was just like, you can't be the director forever. Like technically you can. Like so he was like, you can be in that role forever, but
Yes.
that's not a role you retire in. Um, so he sort of challenged me to think about same idea. What do I want to do for the next 20,
Yeah.
25, 30 years? Um, I've thought about administration. I think I either messaged you about this or Abdullah about this. I have gotten a shocking number of those headhunter emails.
Hmm.
And I always look at those, I go, they're just sending those to everybody. They're not, that's just a blanket. Do you know somebody who might want to be a dean? And I've always deleted them in the past. And unfortunately, I started to realize a lot of my friends are deans. And so y'all started to wear off on me, I think, a little bit. So I might look into
Yeah.
what's a next level of some sort of administrative stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm professionally, I mean, obviously I'm not going to switch. In the next year, I'm not switching over. So like that's an easy
Yeah. Yeah.
answer. I'm going to look and I'm going to talk to people about it. I'm going to I'll say seriously explore if that is something I think I would want to do because I have really enjoyed being the director of this undergrad program. In a way that I was nervous about it a couple of years ago. So now that I'm in the middle of year three, and I think I can be a little reflective on this. I was wildly overwhelmed the first year. I had no idea what was going on. The second year was like working out kinks of stuff. And now in year three, it actually does feel like sort of program building, that we're putting together long-term plans of like, these are the courses we're going to teach over the next few
Yeah.
years. And I have really enjoyed that. And I think
That's awesome.
a job in administration is a long-term career planning type thing. And I think I would really like that. I will
Yeah.
also say, when I was an undergrad, I joked all the time that I wanted to be president of a university. Like I have,
Yeah.
this is the cheesiest stuff. The way that I used to walk to campus, I would walk by the president's office and the president had a parking spot that said, this spot is reserved for the president. And I actually have pictures that I posted on Facebook that was like, this is going to be my spot one day. I was like very dead set that I was going to become a president of a university. I don't know that I'm going to do that, but there's I'm not going to become a president by being a professor. So
Yeah. Yeah. The
need some more experience.
Gosh, that's first. It's really cool, and there's a ton to unpack. And
I
offline,
know
I
I
can
gave you a
tell
lot
you
right
about
there.
you. Well, if you're thinking about first, if you're thinking about seriously thinking about maybe dean or associate dean, I think the questions that I would probably frame first are the type of school you might wish to be at.
Yeah.
So, being the dean at Virginia Tech is very different than being the dean at Susquehanna.
Okay.
It's I don't know for sure what it would be like being the a business dean at Virginia Tech or at UVA for sure. But I have some sense. I know of some deans at RO1s, and they will tell me that they have a fundraising goal, and it is in the eight figures each year, like a set goal.
Yeah.
Whereas at a smaller school, often you are fundraising is part of the portfolio. And actually, it's quite frankly, once I was nervous going into it, but it's fun. You're not asking for money for yourself.
Yeah. I think it'd be fun.
Yep,
That's
it's a lot of fun, but there's not that type of pressure. Would you rather be the kind of person who does a little bit of everything? You do some of the internal and some of the external, and if so, then it's probably a place like your undergrad alma mater or like a Susquehanna or like schools like that, like
yeah.
or is it much more of do you want to be an external voice, which I actually think you could also do very, very well, clearly at what you do. And you mean, and you have, I think, a huge advantage of being super comfortable on news broadcasts and things like that, where you're an external voice and you work a lot with donors. And you have an associate dean who probably handles most of the stuff that is internal, like the dealing with accreditation and what should the exact course sequences look like, and you've got an associate dean for that. You're
Yeah.
along for like four others, and how you manage. I think that would be question one to think about, and this is not a today question. That's just a in the future, over the next few years to think about. But
I can't see myself leaving anytime in the near future.
yeah,
But when I found out that those emails were not just sent to everyone, that made me think a little bit more about it. And I was like, I've got to start doing these like longer term plans. And Abdullah's really good about mapping out multiple year plans.
yeah,
And I'm not that good. My plans are anytime people are like, where are you going to take this? I'm like, I don't know. I've got to figure out what I'm doing right now.
yeah. And that was me. Like I haven't really ever done that before, but it's thinking through. I mean, there's only a finite number of years. I mean, who knows? I may work forever, but at some point you're thinking through a finite number of years. I've gotten to think a little bit more about what it is. I'm in year 8 of a deanship now too, so it's thinking through. And there are some people who are deans for 20 years at the same spot, but the average tenure of a business school dean is about 4.5 years.
That's low. That's lower than I thought.
It's pretty low. Provost, it's actually worse now, but
Really?
it's
Hmm.
now it might be skewed from those who come in and are bounced quickly or
Yeah.
burn out quickly, but it is a pretty low number. And college presidencies, Right now, it's a rough time to be a college president. The politics on from both sides of the spectrum are ugly, that you have to deal with. But um, yeah, that's a different calling. I say calling. I actually think being a college
Yeah.
president. I've thought a little bit about that as a future step, and maybe for the right place, I think that could be. But there's that's a different animal than just being a dean.
Hmm.
Oh,
I am eager and I'll say I'm curious. I'll put it professionally curious
okay.
about that. And a lot of it is just this is my first time to do administrative stuff and just trying to figure out where can I do other things that add value. I think at least internally in our little department, I think we're adding value. And then just thinking about how can that be expanded upwards, outwards, reach more people. Um,
Yeah,
no, I'm excited.
yeah.
So I'd say,
That's incredibly exciting. Incredibly exciting. The like your mention on the stadiums. I'm trying to think through here. Like, what are some of the bigger things? I don't know that I have new destinations travel wise that I'm going to,
new
but
shows, maybe?
what shows to see?
Yeah. Do you have new shows that you've been
Oh, I'll
putting
see a lot.
off that?
Yeah. I don't have any specific ones that I will necessarily see, but it's funny you mentioned like the stadiums to see. Yesterday, a couple days ago, I hope Amanda doesn't mind me sharing this, but we were out for dinner and I was like saying like we are talking about places to go, like what
Mhm.
places. It's almost like a bucket list, but that always sounds so morbid. But and we're pretty reasonably young. That's not really on the edge, but thinking through like what are the various places to see. And I don't know that 2025 will be a year to see any of these places, but we started thinking about what would be some amazing spots to get to somehow.
Mhm.
And so that's something to consider. We have, in a personal life, our youngest will be graduating high school and our middle will be graduating college. So it's a transition year. So I don't think there's any specific spot on the list. If something comes up, that will be awesome. But it's a little bit tough to plan when there will be some college moving going on and then another graduation and going into a particular role and all of that stuff. So
I guess but you're not planning any sort of, you're not doing like a sabbatical away, right? Like you're not traveling anywhere and staying long term.
not long term, senior in high school. So I'll
Hmm.
have the first 2 months I'm gone about every other week for a
Okay.
little bit of a little stretch of time. It might be one place, and I won't name them in case they don't want to be on a podcast, but invited me to be a visiting scholar for a week, and
Hmm.
I'm super excited about that. I'm, that'll be so much fun, and the expenses are covered, and my responsibilities. I might present some research to students and faculty, and then I asked like, are there other responsibilities if you're covering things? Well, yeah, have a cup of coffee with people here. I'm like, oh, the stuff I do anyway, and then just do research. I'm like, this sounds awesome. So that's I'll be doing that. I have a conference or two, but I'm
Hmm.
not going away. So have sabbatical. So you've been in the more of the teaching professor lines.
Hmm.
Sabbaticals, I assume, are not as common, or are they
No, we can do one.
nice? When will you be eligible for a sabbatical?
That's a good question. So yeah, we're eligible. We were not eligible at Penn State. If we were, they definitely didn't tell us about it.
Yeah.
At Virginia Tech, they do allow sabbaticals for teaching faculty. I believe you have to put in 7 years.
That's reasonably standard. It's often
Yeah,
years at Susquehanna, it is year 7 when you can go on your
yeah.
first sabbatical. And you have to at SU it's be tenured, but that's I mean, it's a different model at
Yeah,
Susquehanna.
I don't know. So here's from what I understand, this is I think the main. I'm gonna call it a problem, but it's not really a problem. Virginia Tech just relatively recently introduced the sort of the teaching faculty, like the special titles for teaching faculty. Before they were always just instructors, and so now they've created my official title is a collegiate faculty member.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
right, so it's just a fancy instead of a research faculty, they call us collegiate faculty. And so they're still trying to figure out what things you get and don't get. But the person before me, who was a collegiate faculty member, he had a sabbatical. I just found it actually on the College of Science website. So for us, it's 6 years. You have to be here for 6 years.
Okay.
So
Nice.
tenured faculty member or faculty members on continued appointments
Yep.
have accrued a minimum of 6 years of service are eligible to request a leave. So Steve was the guy before me, and so he
Yeah.
had told me about it, and I was like, I was just blown away that they even allowed it for teaching faculty, and I was like, heck yeah, that's I don't know
Yeah.
what I would
Yeah.
do. Um, I just there's some parts of me where like I can't imagine not being in the classroom. Like
Yeah.
I don't know how to I don't know what to do. So like I have
But I
research,
mean, I
obviously.
know a colleague at Susquehanna came by to the business school meeting to share an opportunity. We have a partnership with a university in Japan, and he
Hmm.
recommended, hey, if anybody's interested in teaching there, and he did that on his sabbatical. And he went and they covered all of the expenses for him to go to Japan, and then he was teaching a couple classes over there, but then he got to live in Japan for a few months.
Yeah,
And
that. See, I've thought about this. So for our listeners who are not in academia, we should probably say a sabbatical, you get time away from your job. Generally speaking, you could take a semester off at full pay, or you may
right.
be eligible for a whole year off at half pay.
That
Um,
is exactly Susquehanna's plan. There are some places that will give you a little bit more than the half if
yeah,
you do the full year off.
I just, yeah, I mean, I think that's what I sort of get it from a research standpoint. So if you're a
Yep.
research faculty member, you might be teaching two or three, I guess 3 or 4 classes a year. So, getting a semester off is a great time to just sort of buckle down, get done the things you need to get done. But I guess that's where it gets so weird and I have to be really careful because I teach half of the really big section. So if I take a sabbatical, I have to be very careful that the other person is
Yep.
prepared.
Yep.
Because who knows who would teach? Nobody's ever taught that class other than the other person who teaches it. We split it.
Yeah.
They teach it half the year, I teach it the other half. But if I take a semester off, they're gonna have to teach both of them.
I suppose it's at the department chair level a little bit more. I deal a lot with the questions on the
Yeah.
sabbatical and how do we staff. And my general response as a dean is it might be chaos, but you need to do it.
Yeah.
It's too important for you not to do the sabbatical. Do it. We'll figure
Yeah.
it
See,
out somehow.
here's where because the problem, that's essentially my job in the department is to
Yeah,
figure
yeah.
out coverage.
That poses a bit of an issue. And then who covers that? But no, it's interesting to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, we came in thinking a little bit talking goals of 2025. In many ways, it's like goals of beyond 2025, but kind
We
of an
really have.
interesting
Do we
discussion.
have podcast goals? I guess we never really talk about these. We sort of bring these up in the moment.
Yeah.
Do you
Uh,
have goals for the podcast that are different than previous goals?
no, I mean we've talked about um, in a perfect world where time isn't a constraint, but we're economists. We know there's constraints. I would think we'd be better off weekly, but I don't think we can do weekly because we're both too busy. And this is going to ignore the fact that probably in about a month or so, like we should do weekly. I can do this, but um, I would think weekly would be better, but I don't think we can. So that's out. We've talked about the idea of, um, could we bring somebody on to help do some of the stuff for us? And that would probably need us to enable payments on Substack. Right now, we don't do any
Mhm.
payments and receive anything, but like the money from there would help to support. I'd love to just grow the audience. I
Speaking of,
don't
well,
don't
speaking of growing the audience, I can tell you, do you know how much we have grown since this moment last year? So not, even though this is coming out in January, we're going to say from this moment, December 16th, how much do you think we've grown since last year?
on Substack.
I only have Substack numbers. Yeah, I mean, that's not ideal, but
No, no,
it gets
but
as
it's
close.
but it's objective.
Yeah,
I think we're in the 700s now, if I
we
remember
are.
seeing it. I
Yep.
would guess. I'll guess a year ago we were about half that. I would guess the high 300s.
Not too bad. We were at 452 last year. We have
Okay,
grown 64% over
not
the
bad.
past year.
That's
We
not
had
bad at all.
a big increase in the summer, like I should say a sharp increase in the summer
Okay,
around Jet Set.
we had the Jet Set increase. Was it? Yeah, could have been Jet Set. Maybe that was people were talking about. People gave a shout out to our podcast at Jet Set, so
Hmm.
that could have been it. Um, I don't know how much any one episode drives, so but we appreciate everybody who is listening, certainly. So thank you. And as I will put in the pitch now earlier than I normally do to 5-star review and share with friends. That helps the algorithm get this out. The as you hopefully heard last time, and this is a bit of a commitment device. This is coming out, and we skipped a full episode, but we dropped I'm saying this, we haven't talked about dropping it yet, but now we have dropped an episode that shares us going through our Spotify review.
Mhm.
And so it's always exciting to hear about how many people are listening to us on Spotify, and that was pretty cool. And I get value. I mean, I'd love to have 10,000 people listen to us each week. That'd be incredible. I don't know what's a realistic number for this though. So,
Something that we talked about last year that I don't think, I mean, Brian did a couple times. So shout out to Brian for doing this. I would like to maybe try to increase this if possible. One of the things that we said was that we wanted to create more episodes where we answered listeners' questions. And I still think that would be a ton of fun. Even
yes.
if it is not necessarily, those of you listening, you don't need these like really deep philosophical questions of like, what's the impact of tariffs on the price of TVs? It can be things like, Matt, why are you taking a sabbatical at all? Like, don't you have plenty of free time? What's the life of a dean like? We, for the most part, I mean, actually, to be fair, Matt, if we didn't feel comfortable answering the question, we wouldn't ask each other
Yeah,
the question.
yeah. Please, you can ask, and if we don't think it's right for we forgive us, but we just won't be recording the episode on it. But
Yeah, but I think it would be really fun. Like if Matt and I say something, we would love, absolutely love if you
yeah,
sent either of us an email, left a comment on Substack. I mean, ideally comment on Substack because that boosts the algorithm numbers. But even if you emailed us and just said, "Hey, Jadrian, what's your favorite stadium that you've ever been to?" You talk about these stadium trips all the time. Trust me,
ooh,
Matt and I could spend probably 45 minutes talking about sports games that we went to, stadiums that we went to, why I like them as a sports economist, even though I'm not supposed to. I would like to maybe push our listeners a little bit more. We talked about it last year. I don't think we really did it. Brian asked some
yep,
questions.
yep.
But we would love to answer questions no matter how weird it is. And if y'all start asking us tons of questions, then we'll just make it like a little part of the show and we'll say we'll have a listener question, little
That would be awesome.
mailbag, grab bag time. So
That would be
honestly,
awesome.
I'm gonna push harder on our listeners. I'm gonna try to remember to do this more often in our talks. If there is something that you have heard Matt and I say today, and you're at this part of the episode, and you're like, "Oh man, I wish they would have talked more about that,"
Yep.
send us an email, contact us some way, and tell us that question, and then we'll try to talk about it in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I think you've just put yourself on the hook for a favorite stadiums conversation in
I'm
general.
happy to do that.
Yeah.
I have lots of them. I've already got a couple of them planned for the next couple of
Awesome.
weeks. So it'll always be
Oh,
good to talk about
that'll be
stadiums.
great. That'll be great. Any pop culture clips to discuss?
Man, what is going on pop culture wise? Actually, I'm gonna say I'll share pop culture that is not new, but new to me. I have dug back into House of Cards. Put it off for a really long time. I watched it. I don't think I ever finished it. I think it was one of
Okay.
those. I have a lot of series where I watch like one or two seasons and then I stop, and then I like
Yeah.
intend to finish and I never do. Started watching House of Cards again. Got to the episode where they talk about work. I mean, I guess maybe I want to be careful not to spoil this. Have you watched House of Cards?
I have watched the first few
Long time
seasons,
ago.
and honestly, then Kevin Spacey stuff came out,
Yeah.
and like we literally have an unopened DVD pack, which will tell you how long ago this was because it was before we had a streaming service that had it. Like we didn't pay for the streaming
Yeah.
at the time, and we just like every now and then we'd get something. So I think we watched the first two or three seasons. So, but feel free to share
Sure. So
anything
I was gonna
anyone
say
else.
I'm at the episode where they introduce AmWorks, a program to basically job guarantees, which was really interesting. Like as I'm watching it, because like I haven't seen this part of the series, or I
Yeah.
didn't see it 10 years ago when it came out. But I remember this is such a huge thing that happens in other countries that doesn't really happen in the United States. But it's something that I think what I find interesting, what I have found interesting, I guess I should say, is how much parallel there is from 10 years ago to today,
In
between these
the
shows, even though they're wildly different. But that this
what?
idea of job guarantees, right? We really haven't seen that proposal since the Great Depression, the works, the WPA, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it was really interesting to sort of see it and then imagine like what would a government program like that look like today. And they're talking about economic impacts of things like people without jobs are more likely to commit crimes. They have health issues. There's education problems. So they're talking about sort of these economic arguments of like the importance of employment, basically. And I thought it was really
Yep.
interesting just to sort of watch it and then think about like what if this really did happen? I'll put that
Yeah.
as my pop culture clip.
Oh, very cool.
Nice
Very
little
cool.
flashback.
Yeah, I don't know if I honestly don't know that I got far enough in the series. I really liked the series. And then, right when it came out, like it was just tough to watch them for a while
Yeah.
for us. And so we got stalled, and I don't know that we'll ever jump back into it, but that's cool. I'll give a shout out for something that will be upcoming on my YouTube channel, and I'll put them on Critical Commons, and if you want to put them on the clips on Econ Media Library. But I'm actually having a conversation with a colleague of yours, Mike Enns,
Great.
on Friday of this week to go through several economic lessons from The White Lotus.
Interesting.
And I don't know if you watch that. It's an HBO series, but season 3 is coming out. And it's just one of the most different TV shows I've ever seen. And season 1 and season 2 are pretty much completely and totally different, except they both take place at the White Lotus, which is a fancy hotel. But there's a incredible, there's a couple incredible examples that involve a dispute between a customer, Shane, and Armon, who works. This is in season 1,
Mhm.
and I'll try not to spoil too much, but basically something happens and it's not ideal for Shane. And I think it's a good example of the sunk cost fallacy. But he keeps pushing it a bit. And then between him and Armon, there's game theory behaving rationally in the absence of spite. And then there's the value of spite and how much you're just mad at somebody and you want to punish somebody. And I think that both of them come into play. And it's pretty interesting. There's other things that there's a few other econ lessons, but those are a couple things that we will be recording. We will have recorded by the time everybody's listening to this. And they are, you could look for them on YouTube, but we'll also be posting the clips if any economics educators would like to use that for their classes. And I can send if you want to throw them on Econ Media Library.
Yeah, no, I like that because so just a couple days ago we talked about the ultimatum game, and then we spent a lot of time talking about right, essentially why would anybody turn down free money if
Yeah.
and I got to talk about revenge, spite, risk, all that sort of stuff. So I'm glad that you did it because like it's one of those it's a really interesting story in the sense that like these are econ majors especially, so like they both, part of their brain is like, no, take the money, and then the other part of it is like, no, I would absolutely spite you if you tried to screw me
Yes.
over. So that's
Yeah.
cool. I'm excited to see it.
Cool. Cool. Well, any closing words of wisdom?
Listen, if I bought this beer 2 years ago, um, Shiner, good job. It's still good. So I've kept it cold,
Awesome.
did not skunk it. It's been in the back. I don't think they get better with age, so I really need to start drinking some of the stuff in the back of the fridge.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's great catching up. Please, for our listeners, we know a lot of you love to hear your goals. Leave them in the comments. Send us an email. Put it on Twitter or wherever you are finding us. But Jadrian, until next time, cheers.
Here's Matt.
Yeah, I'll see if I can make the sound.
No, it didn't cut through.
Ah, come on. It was right near the microphone.
These mics are too good.
The mics are way too good.